Okay, guys, let's get right into this. So, bottom line is we're going to be talking about Social Security enhancement when it comes to the $200 per month stimulus increase that would essentially be, if the bill were to pass, payable in January of 2026. And a lot of people have asked me to make this video because there are a lot of YouTubers out there that are making videos about it, and some of them are a little bit confused as to whether or not the information coming from those other YouTubers is actually correct. Now, I'm going to hit some sounds. There you go. So the point is this, I'm just getting used to it. I went through essentially what Congress has for S period 770 Social Security Expansion Act, which you guys basically know this is essentially pushed forward by Bernie, Senator Warren, things like that. And I had to go through it to try and find the $200 increase per month that everybody was talking about. The kicker with this whole situation is that there really is not a lot of language related to $200 per month as an increase. In fact, when I was going through all the different subsections, all the different updates, all the different this or that, it was tough to find exactly kind of like what they were saying with this $200 increase. So people are saying, hey, the formulas are going to equate to a $200 increase per month. But to be fair, there's a lot of things that could happen with this actually getting passed that would have nothing to do with the $200 increase. So, to answer the first question, does the Senate bill, Senate S period 770, actually promise you a $200 increase per month? The correct answer is no, it does not. And I'm going to take you through basically the sections so that you know exactly what it does, because unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there. This is newer stuff, and I want you to understand how it works. Now, before we go into that, please remember two things. Please remember to like and subscribe because it takes time for me to make these videos. Also, with that said, please keep in mind that the way this bill would be passed is not something Republicans want to do. This is a Democrat proposal, which means that they're going to tax the middle class and the wealthier class more money. Now, middle class, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure. Let's see how they define middle class. Like how much, let's just see what they're saying on Google. How much would someone need to make up to still be considered middle class? To me, it's probably like half a mil per year. But let me see what's really going on. So they're saying can be up to approximately $460 nationally, still be considered middle class. To me, I don't think that's correct. I think Bidenomics pushed the number to be vastly larger for what the standard of living would be for a middle class individual. Now, the way I look at middle class, which is probably different from you guys, could be the same, I don't know. But the way I look at it is, how much would it cost to have a house and a mortgage and like two cars, a spouse, some kids, some pets, stuff like that, and to live in a decent neighborhood? Not a lot of crime, not a lot of ridiculousness. You go to you go to the grocery store, you go to the gas station, and they have stuff sitting outside, right? They're not worried that you're going to steal the water. They're not worried that you're going to steal the DEF, stuff like that. Okay. So a decent area, right? All right. So as a result of that, to me, it is vastly, I mean, vastly more expensive to live in this country after the Biden era. I know some people will argue that Trump created it with COVID and blah, 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 which is ironic because he passed a lot of that stuff because the Democrats forced him into doing it. They forced him, they leaned into him and got him to spend extra money. But ultimately, it was Bidenomics that took over. And that's what caused mass inflation. And that's what caused the little people, the middle class, which is actually the large group, tons and tons of people in it. That's what caused them to not be able to afford the standard basics of, being a middle class individual. Now, with that said, because of the massive increase of house prices, I could see somebody being still middle class that makes even $500,000 a year. Some of you would say that's absolutely ridiculous, but I don't think it is. If you go to some of these areas in California, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, if you go to some of these areas, it is so redonkulously expensive to live in a decent neighborhood. It just doesn't make sense anymore. And I don't mean a super nice area. I don't mean where people own like higher end Mercedes, higher end BMWs, or like the other cars, like the Bentley and the Royal. I don't mean that. I mean like just like, I'm talking about I'm talking about Toyotas. You know what I mean? I love Toyotas. I'm talking about like, middle upper Fords, stuff like that. And that's the thing too. I don't know if you guys have looked up. Let me hold on. What does the average Ford Explorer cost? The average Ford Explorer costs nowadays. Let's see how much it is. Hold on, real quick. Starting for not starting. It's $56,465. Like, to me, that is insane to have to buy a Ford Explorer for $56K. That is just mind-boggling that they could actually charge that much. So again, to me, somebody would be middle class if they were earning, I would say, about 100,000 up to probably 500,000 a year. And then, upper class, you're looking at above 500,000 to maybe, let's say, I don't know, let's say 3-4 mil, and then super upper class above that, whatever you want to categorize those people, because who the hell knows, they're a different class of humans. So point is, bottom line is, to me, that's what I see it. And I know some of you are saying there's no way middle class is $20,000 a month. No, $20,000 a year. No, middle, that is extreme poverty. Hold on, let me I'll look it up for you real quick. Hold on. What is the standard poverty limit per year? I don't know, amount per year. Okay, here you go. It is $32,150 per year for a family of 4 in contiguous U.S. Annual income thresholds are set by the Department of Health and Human Services. You just gotta understand, like, it's not, after Bidenomics, things got really expensive. So the standard of who's middle class, who's not, whatever the government really tells you is BS. I mean, the ridiculous of, I don't know if you guys have noticed, your cost of living adjustment doesn't seem to add too much to the pile when it got really, really expensive. I don't know if you noticed, but when you go to the grocery store, you're like, how did this happen? Is it diamond encrusted? Did they put gold leaf on the wrapper? It's just ridiculous. So understanding that, the whole way this bill basically gets passed through is to charge the middle class and the upper class more money to basically go ahead and tax them on more of their income. And, of course, the upper class will never allow it to get passed through because they don't want to get taxed a whole extra Social Security tax on top of higher earnings that they have. Okay. And I know some of you are like super hard left, and I have no issue with that. I applaud you. I applaud you here. I applaud you here. Okay. But you got to understand, rich people do not like to be taxed more, because then they have to charge more at their businesses, which means fewer people can afford the products and services that they're selling. So this is actually, the way they would pass this would make the middle class and upper class that potentially own businesses or, work out of business, it would make them lose more in the long term, because people wouldn't be able to afford all of the products and things that they normally sell, because the products you would buy would go up in price. They would increase in cost to create, and then you would have to pay for it as an end user. So just so you understand that, that's how that works. I know some people are a little foggy on how the basics of economics work, but when you tax people an extra 12.4, then you add Medicare on top, and you're looking at like 16-17% more per essentially what they make. You're screwing the economy. That's what you're doing. Like, just hold on, let's just say it's 12.04. It's more than that because of Medicare, but let's say somebody earns 250,000. Okay. Oh, I need the calculator. Perfect. Good. We're doing this live. That's how you know this video is live. I'm clicking and figuring it out. Let's say 250,000. Boop. There you go. Times point. Let's see. 12.4. So 0.124. That's 31,000 extra dollars in taxes. And it's actually more than that, because that's just the trust funds for disability and retirement. That's not your Medicare stuff as well. But $31,000 of extra taxes on somebody who earns $250,000 a year. Do you think somebody who earns $250,000 a year is going to be cool with basically $31,000 in extra taxes? And remember, in a lot of these bills, they come out with different versions. Some of them have a donut hole where it won't tax people above a certain amount. That's never what's going to end up passing. What they would end up passing is everybody just has to pay, remove the tax cap. Everybody just has to pay the FICA tax. So let me give you another one. Let's take a rich person. $5 million earned. Hold on, let me make sure I got the zeros right. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. $5 million times 0.124. So if somebody earned $5 million in taxable wages, they would then have to pay out, just so you guys understand how this is never going to pass, because rich people will never allow it to happen. So if somebody earned $5 million, they would have to pay an additional to the trust funds through FICA taxes, $620,000 in taxes. Ain't never going to pass. Like when people are promising you like, oh, $200 per month, it's on the horizon. There's like a turkey stimulus, Thanksgiving, Bernie Sanders, Warren, potato cascading cake, blah, and then you're going to have it at Christmas time. Ain't never going to pass. Ain't never going to pass. But a lot of people asked me to do the video on this. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. All right. So the Senate Bill S.770, it's a Social Security Expansion Act. It's 119th Congress. There is no specific, there is no express, there is no explicit language that there's a $200 increase. What there is are specific enhancements to your benefits, which somewhat come around $200. Let me go through it. So if you go to section 2 in the bill, right? So you go to the enhancement of benefits section in the bill. Here's what you get. Section 2, enhancements of benefits in general. Section 215, subsection I of the Social Security Act is hereby amended by adding at the end of the following new paragraph, for purposes of this subsection, effective for cost of living adjustments for benefits payable for months after December 2025. So they're talking about cost of living adjustment, adjusting it after December of 2025. So like January 2026, the increase would occur. The secretary shall increase the benefit amount under this subsection by an additional 2 percentage points above the otherwise applicable cost of living adjustment under paragraph 1B. So in other words, they're boosting your COLA in 2026 to increase how much you would receive. Now, this does not mean everybody pretty much gets the same amount. This does not mean an automatic $200 increase. Doesn't mean any of that. It just means they recognize that they have screwed you over with your cost of living adjustments, and they're going to give you a whopping dish of crumbs of a 2% increase in a cost of living adjustment to take place to start in January of 2026. So again, this is not, for example, a realistic thing. The Democrats could never get it passed. They couldn't even get it passed when Biden was in. When they had the House, the Senate, and the Biden. Okay, and here's what kind of pissed me off with that whole situation. So we got a lot of really cool ideas that came through in the Biden White House, the pre-White House Biden website. There are these great ideas about how to teach kids and employ kids to take care of their parents, and that would be like a job for them, and they'd be trained as like healthcare personnel. There are all these great ideas. And the amount of them that were actually put into a bill that made it to the second round of negotiations were nearly zero. Nearly zero when they had the House and the Senate and the Biden. So, I look at this and I'm just like, I feel a little bit like I got the rough end of the Democrat, oriented parties push. They didn't materialize the things that they were promising. A lot of them were great ideas. Look, this is not a terrible idea. They just can't tax people like this, because you can't tax people more and expect the economy to succeed. That's like there are ways to say things that don't make sense, and that would be one of them. All right, let me give you the next one, okay? Section 3, minimum benefit. Section 3's minimum benefit of subsection A in general. Section 215 subsection A of the Social Security Act, okay? USC 415 subsection A is amended by adding at the end of the following new paragraph. Okay, so they got the rule, the historic rule, and then they're adding at the end of the new paragraph the following, okay? Subsection A. Notwithstanding the preceding provisions of this subsection, the amount referred to in paragraph 1, so they're going to rewrite it a little bit, for any individual for any month beginning after December 2025, so for everybody in January of 2026, shall be not less than 125% of the applicable federal poverty level, as determined by the Secretary of Health and Human Services for the calendar year in which such month begins. Okay, so let's just do the math real quick because we can do it because we have Google here. All right, so we got what is the 2025 federal poverty level by year? Okay, so we're just doing rough math here. For a single person will be approximately 15,650, family of four, 32,150. All right, so 15,650. So we take 15,650 and we divide it by 12. They're saying that at the current federal poverty level, $1,304.16, 17 cents, they rounded up, right? So $1,304 would be the bare minimum that somebody could receive in the future going forward. Okay, so that would be the bare minimum that somebody could receive. Now, that's at 100%. Now we need to do it at 125%. Okay, so what is the 2025 federal poverty level by year at 125%? Okay, let's check this out. So that would be 19,563. All right, so we take 19,563 and we divide it by 12, and that equals $1,630.25. So they're saying no one would receive less than $1,630.25 if this bill passed worth of Social Security benefits. There is a catch. How is it being paid for? It's being paid for by using what's called the bend points on the graph. The bend points on the, I'm sorry, that's like the Spirit Fingers bend points version. The bend points. That's where the middle class and a little bit of the wealthy, but mostly the middle class, pay a lot of money to the poor, the homeless, the low income. The middle class gets pissed off because they have to pay all this money and they don't get what they actually pay in. They get a much smaller amount as a percentage of what they pay in. The middle class or the lower class, the poverty, the homeless, they get a lot of money. So what this is doing is, once again, taking even more money from the middle class and the upper class, but mostly the middle class, and giving it to the impoverished. Now, realistically, that's the point of socialism. We don't want people to be poor. So at the same time, I get it. It's not a bad thing. But at the same time, the middle class is doing very, very poorly. So the more weight we put on the middle class, the more likely the middle class is not going to succeed. And let's just be fair here. You can define capitalism in a lot of ways, right? Capitalism can be defined as many, many things. But at the end of the day, capitalism as a theory is that you want competing entities that makes people want to try harder. So the way they throw the hook out to try and get somebody to snag on and, be a fish that wants to be part of this whole thing that is capitalism, you got to want those people that are out there that are working to want stuff, not just what they need, but other stuff too. They want to have a nicer car. They want to have a nicer job. They want to have a nicer house. They want to be able to buy the biggie TV and the blah, 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 all that jazz. Cool. All right. You need that for capitalism, right? Then you basically need there to be enough money in the system for people to work towards that. The harder they work, the more money they make, the more crap they buy that they don't need, right? But we love buying crap we don't need. That's capitalism. That's how it works. So as a result of that, this whole idea of capitalism, what they're doing with this is the opposite of capitalism. This is hurting the people who work more to benefit the people who work less. So it's not good for capitalism. Now, we need to have a social system and people need to be able to survive in America. That's true. That's very true. I see some amounts in here. Chain Fate, you only got 304. Man, call me because I'll walk you through how to get that up. But nobody here should realistically be getting less than 967 unless there's some SSI limitation. If you're SSDI, you use SSI to bolster it to get to around $1,000, a little over $1,000. So if you under 967, there might be a problem here, guys. I'm just seeing this now. So, all right, when I do the live session, you might want to call me on that. We're going to do the live session. We're going to do this video, another video, and then the live session. So yeah. If you're getting 644, there's you need to call me during the live session. You are not tapping into this the proper way. You need to call me. So, okay. I mean, you can call me, you don't have to, but it's just with 644, that's not right, All right. So the point is, once again, let's go to it. Notwithstanding the preceding provision of this subsection, blah, 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 the amount referred to in paragraph 1, blah, 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 for any individual for any month. So for everybody, for every month after December 2025, meaning starting in January 2026, shall be not less. I love how they write this. Let me read it to you exactly how they wrote it, because it's disgustingly weird. For any individual for any month beginning after December 2025 shall be not less than 125% of the applicable federal poverty level. Who writes like that? Shall be not less than. It's just silly. Just put January 2026, new calculation. All people are getting 125% above the poverty level if they're below it with the benefits they're supposed to receive. Now, you understand it's going to piss off a lot of middle-class people that are basically getting let's say $1,700 per month, right? This is going to piss off a lot of people who worked and earned and paid into the system and worked hard to get that $1,700, $1,800, and you're rocking in without doing much work at all, and you're coming in at $1,630. So, there's going to be some pissed off middle classers. All right. I'm just letting you know. All right. So the whole point of this other section is that it will increase benefits up to 125% of the poverty level per each year. Now, does that sound like a small increase? No, that's more than $200. That's more than $200. Not only in the monthly sense, but it's also vastly more in the yearly sense. So again, it's not, they don't phrase any of this statute. I don't know why they keep advertising. You know what it is? The other channels are advertising it as this thing of people basically go ahead and they get their 200 yada yada, and it's easy for people's brains to see $200 increase. There's no $200 increase in this bill. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Okay. Section 4, across the board benefit increase. Exact language. Okay. SEC 4, across the board benefit increase. Section 202 of the Social Security Act, 42 U.S.C. 402 is amended by adding at the end of the following new subsection Y for months beginning after December 2025. So again, this stuff starts and pays January 2026. Each benefit payable under this section shall be increased by 5%. So this is a one-time 5% increase across the board. So if somebody's getting the average 2025, for 2025, $1,924, they will see an increase of $96. Once again, that is not a $200 increase. It's just they keep promoting to people, you'll get a $200 increase. You'll actually probably get more than that, especially if you're an impoverished individual. If you're a poor person, you haven't paid much into the system, you will probably get more than that. So the point with this is, and that's why I wanted to go through this. I wanted to go through specific details. And people kept emailing me to do a video on it. Section 2, enhancement of benefits. They're increasing your cost of living adjustment by 2%. Section 3, minimum benefit requirements. They're increasing the base of what somebody could get. So nobody will get below 125% of the poverty rate. Okay. And then Section 4, across the board benefit increase of 5%. Right? Everybody gets a boost of 5%. There is no language about a $200 increase. It doesn't exist. Read through it. This is the bill. It is Senate Bill S.770. It is the one all these other YouTubers are basically going and talking about. There is no $200 increase in it. There are increases in it that are greater than $200. But they are basically being disingenuous when they advertise that somebody is going to get a $200 increase, because the math for very, very few people works out to $200. for some of them, it works out to multiple hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of an increase. For some people, it equates to not much at all of an increase. So that's the reality. That's what we're facing here. And I wanted to clear the air on this. If you enjoyed this video where I explained how much somebody will get under this so-called $200 extra per month bill, which it never states $200 extra per month. If you enjoy this video, please remember to like and subscribe. Also, if you enjoy these videos, I do these videos through the law firm, Disability Resolution Law Firm, or Disability Resolution Florida. And what I do is I go ahead and I always ask people, if you like these videos, head over to the Google business page. You just search Disability Resolution Law Firm, throw some stars up there if you like this. Now, final thought. What is the likelihood that essentially Trump will go ahead and pass something like this? What is the likelihood? Well, considering that the Democrats and Republicans just shut down the government over essentially a form of funding health insurance for immigrants, and no, it's not traditionally through your Medicare system in the usual sense or Medicaid. It's quasi attached to that, but it's funds through a system that then gets paid. But the point is, they can't agree on stuff. And to be fair, Democrats used to be like all about Social Security. They used to be all about the idea of somebody, and I want to phrase my words correctly here. They used to be about minorities, Social Security recipients, and women's rights. That's not exactly where they're at nowadays. Nowadays, it's different. Republicans are in a totally different place too. Republicans are in a totally different place than they used to be. Totally different place. Used to be this war-mongering, super Christian, follow this or you're going to hell kind of existence, right? Used to be like that. It was that. But now it's something totally different. It's totally different. But on the left, it's not about the original dynamic that got them in. Social Security is not really part of the future generation of Democrats. The Bernie Sanders, yeah, but I mean, hold on. Let me look. How many years has Bernie Sanders been in politics? Okay. And when you find out how much he's actually gotten passed, it's kind of shocking how little it is. So he is, let's see, how many years, hold on, I'm trying to figure out, he's 84 years. How many years has Bernie Sanders been in politics? Hold on, let me see if I can find this real quick. If anybody has a stat, let me know. Let's see. They should be able to use AI. Hold on. They should be able to just figure this out. Although it might be a little complicated with his background. So he's a mayor of Burlington, Vermont, 1981 to 1989. U.S. House of Reps, 1991 to 2007. U.S. Senate, 2007 to the present. So from 81 to today, 2025. So, all right, people. How many years have occurred from 1981 to 2025? I'm not doing math. It's the end of the day on Friday. It's 5:01 p.m. on Friday. So he has been in politics for 44 years. So to be clear, thank you, Slatherings. Thank you for the 40. Thank you for Dan for the 44 years. So just to be clear, he does not represent the modern Democrat. Like AOC represents more of like the modern Democrat, and they are all about Islam. They are all about basically LGBTQ plus, and they're basically about I don't even know beyond that. I'm not even sure what it is, because it's not about minorities anymore. It's just not. It's not about homeless people like it used to be. It's just not about that anymore. And what's weird is that the Republicans are starting to learn that they can play pickup ball and like grab these extra groups that, normally they would like. I would never expect a Republican to give a bleep about Social Security. I would never expect that. And now all of a sudden they're in there with Doge and they're trying to do that, and they're caring about what commissioner they have. They used to not really care. I mean, yeah, there was Commissioner Saul, and that was like the first real like dig in where they're like starting to begin the process of caring, but they didn't really care about Social Security. Social Security was not on their radar for the most part. It just wasn't part of their thing. Okay. So at the end of the day, it's just one of those things where when I look at the structure of this, and some people will be like, why do you talk about politics? Because it defines if something's going to pass. The only reason Social Security Fairness Act got passed is because the Democrats knew they had to pass it, or else Trump was going to pass it. And if Trump passed it, that would look very bad for the Democrats. That would look absolutely horrible for the Democrats. So it's like, the only way we really get positive movement in the Social Security field is when us, the children of the divorced parents, the Republican, this and the Democrat that, us, the divorced kid of them, only when they're fighting to figure out who's going to give the biggest Christmas present do we end up with something nice. So I guess my point to this whole thing is, considering all this stuff, I guess I don't know. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think here's the thing too. Bernie has a lot of great ideas. It's got a lot of incredible ideas. A lot of incredible ideas, really good, unique, future-forward ideas. We rely on Democrats for that. That's like the Democrat territory. They'll invent new ways to move us forward. They're kind of like, how like technology is, in like Texas or California or Florida or whatever, is moving us forward, quantum physics. That's what the Democrats are. They're like the new, sometimes it takes some weird detours. I know, but it's, they move us forward. They're not stuck in the mud like the Republican Party. And Bernie Sanders has had a lot of interesting ideas. But where Bernie has always successfully, I think, done well is by presenting goalposts to get to. You know what I mean? So like, we want to shoot for this. We want to get to that. That has been his big thing. How he affords that, how he pays for that, he's not been super great at, but that's always been his thing. So, all right, with all that said, we've gone through a lot of stuff. We've gone through the Senate Bill 7.0770. We now know that there is absolutely no promise of $200 per month because there are 3 provisions that increase your benefits, and none of them say $200 per month. One is a COLA increase. One is basically a 5% increase. And then one of them is essentially basically a 125% above the poverty level. So like all the super poor individuals that are receiving Social Security benefits will get a boost so that everybody's at a baseline that makes more sense. Which, I support because, you can't live in America. You can't live in America in the poverty level. Like it's just, you can't do it. You can't do it per month. Unless you live in Louisiana, like the back end areas of Kentucky, in the hollers of Kentucky and stuff like that. Unless you live in like, the real backwater area, the backwater states, you know what I mean? The pond water has been sitting there for a while. The river looks a little dry. Unless you live in those areas, there's just no way to afford to be able to live at the poverty level. There's just no way. It's not plausible. So, all right. With that said, please remember, there is no magical $200 increase coming, but there is a bill that would increase the benefits you have. But the thing that's going to pay for it is never going to get passed because it requires the middle class and the wealthy to end up paying more, which the middle class can't afford. So at the end of the day, it's just not likely for the rich who pay for the politicians to have their, campaigns. It's just not likely for those individuals to go ahead and be super excited about a very large new increase in taxation on the money that they earn. It's just not likely. And then, of course, if you're like, oh, well, the Republicans and Democrats will come together, it may be a good argument. It may be a good argument. I might be on board with you after they reopen the government. We just got to get over that little thingy-majiggy right there where they got to reopen the government. You know what I mean? Because the Democrats are like, we want our little vote farmed people. And the Republicans are like, we want to be able to afford our government. And ironically, what the funny thing is? I thought the Republicans were not with a very strong spine. That's my polite way of putting it. I don't think at the end of the day, they actually did what they could have, should have done because they came forward with the Biden era spending. And they did that because they wanted more money to keep doing, what they're doing. Because if they came in and they're like, we don't want to spend too much, we're going to cut everything back. We're only going to spend this, we're not going to spend that. I was expecting the Republicans to come in and be like, we're massively reducing what we're allowed to spend. We're only allowed to spend this much. And, we're doing a 25% cut across every single sector, some hard line cut. That's what I expected the Republicans to do. They didn't. They said, we'll continue the Biden era spending as it was. And I sat there and I was like, whoa, it's a little bit of hypocritical right there. Republicans are like, we want to go after waste, you know. Well, I mean, no offense, but like underlying the whole waste principle was Biden era spending. You know what I mean? It's to be fair, like you just tried to vote in with the Democrats the thing that was waste, So again, a little bit of hypocritical. I saw that stuff and I was like, hey, wait a minute, you know what I mean? So, anyways, I will catch up with you guys a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. I try to give you both sides of the aisle. Some of you get mad at me for, one side. Some of you love the Democrat side. Some of you love the Republican side. I think that's amazing. I think that if you just take a moment and start to read the news on both sides, you will realize that both parties are not there's a line and they're not always above it. That's all I'm going to say. But with that said, I will catch you a little bit later. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you enjoy these videos, please head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm, and throw some stars up there. Totally up to you. We do have another video coming out shortly, which is basically about Medicare Advantage plans, medical facilities. I don't normally go into essentially Medicare related details, but in this video, there's something shocking going on in the Medicare field. If you have questions about Medicare, please call these individuals. They can do a tune-up on your Medicare plan. And the bottom line is, I just don't normally do a lot of Medicare videos, so they can go ahead and answer things. The main thing you can ask them about, too, is what's going on with the fraud in the Medicare arena, because I think the largest amount of fraud in the Social Security realm actually came from Medicare. I think that was the clear winner. It was more than retirement fraud, Social Security disability insurance fraud, SSI fraud. More than all of those was the Medicare fraud. And these guys, they can let you know essentially whether or not you're in the clear and your doctors are good and everything should be okay with your plan. So, because they're following that stuff very, very heavily. So, but again, if you want them to do a tune-up on your Medicare, give them a call and rock and roll from there. It's a free call. All right. Attorney Walter Hnot, I hope you are well. I will catch you a little bit later. Please remember to, bottom line, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself. I will catch you at the next video in about 5 minutes, and we will rock and roll from there. Also, keep in mind, we will be going live later today. I couldn't do it last night. I fell asleep literally at the computer. I was typing up a thing that I had to send to the judge, and then I woke up and I read it. And I was like, this is crap. So then I had to rewrite it. But again, I fell asleep at the computer. So that's why I wasn't able to do it. And then, of course, if you want a private session, 30-minute, 60-minute private session, mini contract is below. I will catch you a little bit later and we'll rock and roll from there. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.